The path to mastery leads through the heart of adversity. Challenge is the raw material from which courage and strength are forged. Warriors are not defined by events. Warriors define them. Warriors conquer themselves before all else. Warriors are relentless in their service to others. Join us as we open our hearts and hone our minds to a razor's edge. It doesn't matter how slow you go, only that you do not stop. Your time is now. And now your host, Jason McKenzie.
And boom, what'd you think of that new intro? I absolutely love it. And I want to give a shout out to Oscar Vasquez for so generously creating that for me. I mean, what an amazing gift. So thanks, brother. So listen, if you want to support the Mental Health Warriors podcast, if you love what we're doing here, there's a couple ways you can do that. The first one is to leave us a review and rating on iTunes, only if it's good, of course. But you can seriously do that in your podcast app. It just takes a second, and it really helps us get noticed. And we're moving up the search results, which is wonderful. So if you could support with that, that would be great. Another thing is to share the episodes. Share them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. But if you think there's something in the message that could help people, do them a favor and share it. And it would help us out at the same time. And lastly, you can support us over at Patreon. Go to patreon.com/mentalhealthwarriors. And that would really help us cover the cost of the podcast, and it would be much, much appreciated. So on to today's conversation, which is with my man, Tuan, who I met about a year and a half ago at a fatherhood retreat, and the guy just blew me away. I was quite nervous about going to this fatherhood retreat because I knew that there was a bunch of guys there, like really high-level guys. And Tuan was one of the first ones I met, and he told me a story, and it just, I mean, I don't even know what to say about this guy other than, of all the people I've met on my entrepreneurial journey and my journey of personal growth, he is one of the ones who at the very top of generosity, who's given me his time, who's taught me, who's brought me into things that he's involved with. And I just consider our relationship such a fucking blessing. It's hard to describe. In this episode, we talk because he's a real dude. I guess that's the important thing. He's achieved all of this amazing stuff, made companies worth millions and millions of dollars. He's helped raise millions of dollars for charity. But he's a real dude. Underneath all of it, he's a real freaking dude with real issues. And he talks about them openly, and one of the things we talk about is presence and intention and how that plays a role in, creating the life that you want, not just your personal life, but your business life and how they're intertwined with one another. So he's got a phenomenal story, but most importantly, he is the salt of the earth. I've stayed at his house. I don't know. It's hard for me to describe how much respect I have for this guy, but I need you to listen to this episode because this is exactly, when they talk about the famous quote Jim Rohn made where you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, which implied in that message is obviously that you need to get a better, higher quality of people in your life. Tuan is one of the people who has made me realize just how profoundly life-changing it is to have a higher caliber of people in your life. So listen to this episode, and I want to tell you a little bit about Tuan. So he's an awesome biz dad. He's the founder of Dude Buddha, which is a tribe dedicated to supporting business fathers and helping them develop and strengthen their leaderships and business skills while learning the tools to stay connected to themselves and their families. He's also the founder and chief genie at healthgenie.ca, a business advisory firm that helps dental and medical groups across North America with leadership, strategy, clinic acquisitions, and marketing. Prior, he was a partner of the multi-million-dollar online directory portals, CanadianKiosk.ca and AutoCatch.com. And OttawaLiving.ca, where he focused on national expansion towards 26 cities for kiosks and more specifically the health directory, healthgenie.ca. He's also delivered 300 speaking engagements across the globe, including 3 TED Talks. Like, the guy is a frickin' force of nature. He's one of these people, when you watch him, you're like, how the hell do you do that? But then when you ask him, he explains it to you in ways that you can understand. So, Tuan, thanks a lot for doing this, brother. And thank you for being a friend, man. You've changed my life probably more than you even know. And it's an honor to be able to feature you and share you with my audience. And I know they're going to benefit greatly from it. So we will see you on the other side. All right, Tuan, round two. Welcome to the Mental Health Warriors podcast. And this time I have my fingers crossed that there will be no technical difficulties.
Thank you, good sir. Really glad to be here. Rock and roll.
All right, let's do it. So it's going to be, I'm expecting you to be able to show the same level of authenticity and spontaneity and enthusiasm when you say the exact same thing for the second time. So here we go. So what I asked you last time, and I'm still curious, is tell me about what's going on in your life right now that excites you the most, brother.
Wow, so many different things are exciting, but let's go. I like to break it down in 4 areas. So first, from a family perspective, really excited. The kids are growing up, and they're just amazing me every single day. And this morning, my son made his bed on his own, and I have to pat myself on the back. I actually helped solve a mathematical problem that basically confused the shit out of me last night. But this morning, my daughter and I sat together, and we solved that math problem, and I was like, pretty excited about that.
What grade is your daughter in?
This one is in grade 9.
Yeah, mine is. That's an accomplishment. Solving grade 9 math is definitely an accomplishment because my daughter's in grade 9 too, and it's just about beyond me.
Yeah. It took me literally 2 hours to figure it out. So, but that was pretty awesome. So I felt pretty stoked about that one. And then from a business perspective, it's growing really well, and I've grown faster than I thought over the last 5 months, and it's resulted in me being able to hire people, which is awesome to always give people a job and give them some hope and help them develop. So it's cool there. And then on a personal front, I want to save this part for later on, but I'll start with this by the conclusion, which was 2 days ago, and this is like hot off the press for you, Mr. Jason. I broke up with my lady.
Oh, wow.
And it stems from me having an insane struggle, and it created a severe, almost like a side depression. Excuse me, I'm just recovering from a cold. Almost a side depression. And then the next day, she came up, and then we had a really deep discussion. And for the first time, I felt our relationship grew. So guess what? We're back together, actually. But it's why I decided to break up is probably something I'd love to dive in with the community earlier, because it has completely to do with a mental breakdown. So we will discuss that later. And believe it or not, I was very, very excited. I'm super excited. It lights me up even thinking about the last 3 days of my life and how proud I am and how proud I was, courageous enough to take that step. And then the last thing I guess I could say I'm really excited about is you're aware of my Dude Buddha movement, which is me curating a community of business fathers, so fathers who are business owners, to share and support each other in our pursuit of being awesome in business, at home, and as a man. So all these things are lighting me up every day, and I get on base, I strike a few times, but I never strike out. So so there you go. It's been great.
Yeah, I guess that's something that, looking at you as a guy from the outside, as sort of that Dude Buddha avatar, I guess, is, people, you've had amazing success. You're a guy who, just people love being around. You're an amazing connector. You've had fabulous success in business, but there's still shit that you deal with, right? Just like we all do. And I know you've been pretty open about some of that stuff. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because I really believe, I don't know if you see this, or maybe this is a notion that we can dispel right now, but people have this a tendency, I think, whether it's in people we admire or, leaders that lead us, quote, lead us. So we put people on a pedestal and we think they possess some super secret special abilities or superpowers or magic sauce that we don't, and that they're immune to, the self-doubt and the fear and depression and anxiety, that plague the, regular Joe, so to speak. And I think you will be able to forcefully dispel that notion.
Absolutely. I think since we met, it's thanks to you that brought up the whole idea of vulnerability. And in my past, my success was all around this, like, I'm a champ, I'm killing it, I'm giving all this money to charity, I'm raising all this money for charity. And that was like the past image, which attracted people who just wanted that as their perfect life. But since we met, it's weird because I have had a lot of success, but I've also had a lot of success because of vulnerability And you've seen some of my posts where I tell people I'm feeling screwed up today, or I felt like a failure today, but then I showed a perspective within that failure. And I find what I'm attracting are people who come to me and say, your life seems perfect because you're succeeding, but you're also admitting that you're screwed up here and there, right? And it's what I appreciate about this show is because I'm able to come onto this community and go really extra on the tough times, go really deep into sharing really what does go on in my head that I think makes us all a common community. We're not alone, although oftentimes we have moments or huge moments where we feel alone. So you're right. On the outside, it might look like life is really hickory-dory and awesome, but it is still awesome because I'm able to feel comfortable sharing that I have problems. I'm able to be comfortable sharing that, today was a really challenging day. And yesterday alone, I made a huge mistake, which I think I might have lost a friend out of it. I'm not sure if he'll forgive me, but it was a mistake that I didn't even think, and my brain just farted, and then it stank the whole room, and my friend didn't like the smell of it, right? So this happened just yesterday, and so I'm not perfect, and but I licked my wounds, and I said, I'm going to continue, and I'm going to focus on what I believe is right, and maybe one day, I will hear from my friend again.
Yeah, that's powerful. One of the things that I'm working through right now is I'm struggling with the idea of how much weight to give my thoughts. So in other words, you hear a lot of people and they talk about, positive thinking and positive affirmations and all that kind of stuff. And I'm really starting to question a lot of that because I feel like I'm not sure best how to articulate it. I'm just, maybe if I blurt something out here, you'll be able to make some sense out of it. But I feel like what I tend to do is I tend to give my thoughts more weight than they deserve. So when I try to do positive affirmations, I feel sometimes like what I'm trying to do is be proactive in driving out the negative thoughts when I should be not should be, but what I think, peace and harmony really comes from just being able to accept that you can't really control your thoughts, but you can have total control over the weight that you give your thoughts. Has that been that kind of thinking or anything been part of your personal journey?
Absolutely. And in fact, it's every day. It's every day where I face something that I feel is negative, and then I create a positive perspective out of it, right? And then I just kind of give it bigger mitts, and I try to beat down what's negative, right? And then when it really starts clearing up in my soul is when I just give myself a hug. I learned this from my yoga teacher. I let the negativity exist, but I start giving it no meaning. So rather than creating a positive anti-negative thought, I just stop giving what happened meaning. So for example, yesterday, I did something that I basically sent an email out, and I thought it was cool to say, hey, I also know this guy, right? We're both friends. But it was name dropping in a way where I thought it was just like a friendly thing. We're just buddies. But it was possibly perceived negatively as if it's taking advantage of a friendship. And so I think he felt taken advantage of. And I was screwed for an hour. Like an hour, I couldn't believe that this happened, right? And then my buddy Shane, who's one of my awesome biz dads, he said, hey dude, man, let's just shrug it off. And I said, how do you shrug it off? He goes, just don't give it any meaning. Just do what you're going to do. Just forget about it. Just don't give it any meaning. Instead of not forgetting about it, just know that it happened, but don't give it meaning. And so it took me probably about 15 minutes to just say, all right, it happened. What do I do next? And then I started doing what I felt was right. I started working on things that I believe was right for my life and for the people I want to help, like my kids, for example, or my lady. I bought her flowers, and I felt better. By the end of the day, that mess up that I did in the morning, it didn't impact me anymore. But I know it happened, right? It happened.
Right.
But I just didn't let it have meaning to me anymore that I created. Rather than sometimes we try to create a positive thought, which is nothing wrong. Like positive thinking is very important. But sometimes it's just about an act of not letting a dialogue happen. So I just stopped the dialogue around what happened from existing, and I was able to move on. Is that kind of along the lines of what, like?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely it is. And that's, I think that for me, I feel like that's where I need to focus. I feel like I've made progress in that area, but I feel like it's where I need to focus my, say next phase of personal development. I mean, it's not really a phase. I guess it's a lifetime journey, but I know that there's an opportunity for me there. One thing I wanted to ask you about before we get into your sort of origin story is how do you, because you've set some really audacious goals for yourself and you've achieved them. And I read something just this morning, actually. And when I was reading it, I was looking forward to bringing it up and kind of unpacking a little bit with you. But what I read, I've always believed that in certain contexts, very rigid goal setting can be very limiting, right? Because I mean, sometimes you can put goal setting is important, but at the same time, you can put blinders on to, some of the other opportunities around you when you're laser focused on an end goal. And I think sometimes you can really wrap up your personal self-worth in the achievement of that goal, thereby not feeling worthy until you achieve it. And then maybe as soon as you achieve it, like looking for the next hit of adrenaline. And what this author said in this book I'm reading said, ideally what you want is high involvement and low investment, in the sense that you want to bring all your creativity and passions to the things that you're working on, but low investment in the context of, hey man, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't mean you're a horrible human being. And I know for entrepreneurs especially, that can be a real challenge. So, I mean, what do you think about that? And do you think differently about it now than maybe at a time earlier in your life?
Oh, that's a good question, actually, because it's part of the reason why I decided to end the relationship 2 days ago, funny enough. I would say that it really depends. I would say there's two sides. One is something very deep and personal goal, where it's not about something very concrete. It's not like I want to make $500,000. I want to make a difference in 1 million men in the world. I want to help 1 million children. It's not like that. I would say that's kind of an external goal. Then we have an internal goal that cannot be defined. It's almost like how it feels when you're alive, right? And so if you go back to my earliest successes, it always starts about me doing something that made me alive. So to kind of mesh my origin into this moment, if I may, the long story short is I'm your typical story of an immigrant that came to Canada 42 years ago, and I had significant health problems. We were poor. We were on welfare. And through the act of volunteerism, I just went and volunteered. And then when I went to engineering, then business school, I learned business skills. And I decided to try some of these business stuff that I learned into volunteerism. I just tried business skills into fundraising. And so one half of the equation was I was able to raise $1 million by 25 years old. And I just kept working a formula that worked, right? So that's one thing that worked. And at that time, I was like, holy cow, this is actually happening. I can't believe it, right? The other thing was when I was in school, I did this project where I interviewed small businesses. I didn't even realize they were called small businesses, basically owner-operated restaurants, I walked around the community and just interviewed business owners. And I asked how they marketed and advertised, and I asked if they would buy radio or TV ads. And that's when I learned how expensive it was. Now probably still, but back in the day for sure. And I said, that's just not fair. Like, how can these small players ever move up when they don't have a chance to purchase advertising? So that's when I created, with a couple of buddies, a website. This is way back into the mid-90s. And, we're like, we're going to sell advertising on our website for very little money, and we're going to just drive traffic to our website. But the purpose was great. Like, I felt really awesome doing that, right? The goal was this feeling that I had in volunteerism. What I didn't realize was going to become a multi-million-dollar business. And there was this point where I started creating external goals. Right? Wow, we've grown to 1 city. Let's see if we could do 2 cities. Oh, let's go for 26 cities. And then one of our sites hit 100 cities. And even when we hit all these goals, it made no impact on my happiness, because I started getting addicted to the attention. I started getting addicted to the power, and the ultimate goal was this joy of living, this joy inside my life, right? And so we take that to today as of recent. And 2 days ago, I said to my lady, I'm like, honey, I'm extremely unhappy. And I first, I want to let you know that I'm unhappy with myself. I let myself give up everything I believed in just to please everyone, including you. Right? And when I asked for something that was really important to me, I just felt it was ignored. From how we want to raise our children, how we do like just how we judge people in general. Just there's so many things that I felt that I was just giving up on me, even though on the outside, as you see, I'm crushing it in business, right? I'm crushing it in terms of my messages traveling far. That's all great. These are all external goals that I've set because it would be cool to say I've helped 1 million people. Mm-hmm. But the ultimate goal, which is to me, is what I think we all strive for at the end of the day. Why we feel depressed is because we felt we've given up on ourselves. And then sometimes we feel it's too late to get back on the horse and go after what we want. And I spent the last 3 months suffering inside, feeling like it's over. I'm knee deep into this. I just can't, I just can't leave this. She's a really amazing woman. She loves me. You have all these arguments that it's awesome. But then you feel yourself just, what's that, wilting away, right? Like you just feel yourself just melting away. And so then when I mustered up the courage that night, it flowed so well. I was able to express everything I said. And then, and mainly it was 100% about me. It was as in what I believed. And at the end of that, we went up sleeping in separate rooms. The next morning she came up to me and she said, I don't want us to end. And I know I need work. I need to work on myself. I know there's things I got to work on, and then she asked me, what should I work on? And I said, I'm not here to tell you what you got to work on because I have to tell myself what I got to work on. And then I'll let you know what I'm working on. But you tell me what you want to work on. And together we could support each other on our self-healing and our self-work. Right? So, I'm trying to swing back to your original question, which is setting goals and accomplishing. I've set some physical, external goals, and I believe that if you put your head to anything that's kind of physical, external, like lifting weights, being this successful, getting this job, you could actually accomplish anything you want. Externally set, you could accomplish. What's really tough is the goals you set for yourself internally. And that requires a lot of courage, and that requires a lot of support, a lot of community involvement where you're surrounded with the right people. And so your community, for example, I mean, of course, I jump on it whether you know it or not. You probably see like your posts are seen by me, but I read a lot of posts and I walk away feeling more strength to do and move towards. And 2 nights ago, I mustered up the strength to say, guys, Tuan, it's actually not too late. It's actually not too late. I know you feel like it's over for you in this world, but it's not too late. And I proved it to myself 2 days ago. And that's what I want to share with anyone who's listening, which is this community that you're part of the podcast. It's the purpose here is to let you know you can do it. It's never over. It's never too late, and you could always bring yourself back. And I don't expect to be anxiety free tomorrow. I know that it's going to be a progress over the next several years or my lifetime. But I'm not giving up. And every time I inch a bit forward, it makes it all worth the effort. Because I look at my son and I tell myself, I am setting an example that I think I would love him to follow, which is make the choices that he wants to, that's aligned with him.
I love it. So in your conversation you had with your lady a few nights ago, I mean, was it kind of the first time or that you unabashedly and unapologetically expressed what you need?
No, it was probably the third or fourth time that was to that level.
Okay.
But I made a clear decision at that point. While the other three was, I kind of want to talk about it and express my thoughts and express my feelings, But this time it was like, honey, I want to talk to you. And it's because I went into that conversation with a choice already made. And that was the difference, was I felt the courage, I felt the energy, And I'm like, done. I've made this choice. I'm going to just go for it. I'm just going to say it. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just going to say it. Then I'm going to figure out, move out, find a place. I don't know, but I'm just going to figure it out after I officially make the choice. Right? But yet that choice ended up resulting in something I did not expect, which was her coming back to me and saying, I want to do some work as well. Right? While the last 3 years, I felt she just didn't want to do anything. She just wanted me to do all the change around her.
And do you think it was different this time because of the, sort of the space you were in, or the version of yourself, I guess, that you took into that conversation is what helped create something different?
Absolutely. It's how we use different terms. How I showed up, it could be another way of saying it. I showed up completely confident about my decision and showing her that this was such a serious decision for me because it's impacting my life. And I'm not sure which listeners here are fathers like yourself, Jason, but my son is my ultimate motivation. I always look back and I think, geez, if my son was watching me, with these decisions, I would not want him to copy this. So I need to change the story up so that way one day when I share with him part of this journey, I could tell him, like, Daddy went through this, but this is a choice he made because this is what he felt was right for him. Not like give up his values. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's really important because I'm curious to know if you've always approached decisions like big decisions like this with this level of clarity and intention, because I think for me, I do more now, much more now than I used to. But I look at some things for me that were big decisions, like, I don't know, say, for example, quitting drinking. And I've tried to dissect that. I don't do it so much anymore, but I mean, I tried to dissect that every which way from Sunday to try to figure out what it was about that specific moment in time that allowed me to so radically change my life, because I thought, God, if I could duplicate that, I mean, I could help so many people and blah, blah, blah. But I've never really been able to quite figure it out. So I guess, and you've made some pretty huge decisions in the past, whether business or personal. I mean, was the level of intention that you brought to this conversation just a few days ago at a different than what you've done in the past?
So I'll say no. Okay. And I'll explain why. So for me, it's not about intention. It's the level of presence. And I find two things bring insane presence to your own life. A flippin' crisis, right? And a vision that is so inspiring because you know that you'll feel deeply alive when you think of this. Kind of like when I watch a dance video of a song I like and I'm just so alive and I envision choreography. I'm just so present, brings me to this level of creativity like you mentioned earlier, right? And so to me, when I made these choices, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say when most people make a stern choice, it's because something brought them to absolute presence, which is either a crisis or something that completely inspires them. And step two is the intention. Step two to me is the intention once during that choice. So you either make a choice, say, I don't want this crisis ever again, right? And that could be your intention. But where I've changed from the past to today is my intention is always more forward thinking, more positive, rather than, oh my goodness, I don't want to be poor ever again. Oh my goodness, I don't want this crisis or heartache ever again. It's more like, okay, this is a crisis I'm dealing with. And the reason I want to end this relationship because I'm choosing to move forward in a super powerful and, aligned way of me, aligned version of me, or more powerful, more authentic version of me, right? Like, so it's different versus in the past where the choice is the intention is like, I don't ever want that ever again.
Gotcha. Let's talk about presence, because I think for a lot of people, presence is a buzzword and it's almost like this abstract concept. And I'll tell you a little story about me from this summer. Like I had this realization just earlier like at the beginning of the summer, I was at the cottage with my wife and she wanted to go canoeing. And on a side note, and I've told this story before, but to me, if there's a canoe if you look at a dock and there's a canoe and then there's a motorboat, I cannot for the life of me understand why someone would want to take the canoe, but that's just me. So anyway, she wanted to go canoeing and we're canoeing. The sun is coming up. It's quiet. It's peaceful. You can hear nature. There's nobody around. And my mind is everywhere in the world except for in this moment and experiencing the beauty of things I'm thinking I got to do, people I got to talk to, mistakes I've made, just a million miles an hour. And I had this really, in a way it was good because I had this really powerful realization that, okay, what's happening right now is holding me back in some profound way. But I don't know what it is quite yet, but I know that for me, the journey forward is going to begin looking inward. And so when people hear, the point is I wasn't present. And so from your point of view, like what does it mean to be fully present? And when people are in that space, like what might they expect that would be to be different from being fully present than being like sort of the monkey mind that we're all used to?
Great question. I mean, I'll try to answer this as the most simplified way. I mean, presence is you're absolutely into the present moment with the present environment in front of you. You're not creating something in your head that's not right there. To me, presence is just literally enjoying something that's physically and just right in front of you, right? So what I hear you experiencing is, first I want to say we all do this every day, even with our children probably. It's a little bit more difficult with our children, especially if they don't speak, like my 5-year-old, not as much. But with my wife or my girlfriend, I call her my wife still, and the 2 stepdaughters, when I feel a lack of presence, I actually let them know that I have all these things on my mind. So I've sat down with my girl, like we do this kayaking thing down the street from us. There's a nice little dock. And there's moments where I'm on the kayak and it's beautiful. That's why we went out there in the first place. And my mind is on like that last email I saw just before I stepped out that I couldn't open, right? Or I opened it and then I stepped out. I'm like, oh man, I just want to go back and respond that email, right? And then it's amazing the day I decide to just let her know, like, hey, honey, I don't know why, but I have that stupid email in my head and I just can't seem to enjoy this very moment. And then it's funny how that conversation evolves. I bring that thing that took me away right to the present moment. And the conversation gets alive. And then soon enough, when I talk through with my lady who's there to hear me out, it's let go. And then I start enjoying the moment again. There are days where I spend an entire hour with her and I just can't get present in the moment. And I feel guilty and I just always have to just forgive myself and move on. But to me, presence is practicing your brain to understand that when that happens, what works for you to get present? What works for you to let go and just enjoy this very exact moment? Because this moment is there for you to get the energy to deal with that crap or the opportunities that awaits for you.
You know, it's funny you mentioned the email. I mean, I went to the library. Sometimes just to get out of the house, I go to work and get some peace. I go to the library. And I was sitting there today and I was feeling, oh my God, man, just totally fucking overwhelmed. And my wife has this, like, just this ability to, I somehow know that. So she texts me and she says, hey, just, I forget what she said, like thinking about you or something. And I just unloaded like on WhatsApp, and I'm like, I'm sitting here. I feel like a fucking failure. I don't know what I'm doing and blah, blah, blah. And just like you talking about the email, I cannot believe how much better I felt just by getting it out of my own head and sharing it with somebody who loves me, and it's, I don't know. I talk to a lot of guys who they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that with the people that are closest to them, with their partner or whatever, because I think they're afraid of being judged or they think that they have this persona to maintain. And yeah, I don't know. I just really connected with what you're saying. And I mean, I guess, has that been a journey for you too? Like with being able to be open about that kind of stuff to the people that you're closest with?
Yes. And I mean, it has been very difficult, which is why I finally opened up to full transparency this past Tuesday evening. It was the night where I said, oh my goodness, I think I need to be fully transparent. Every single thought I just let it out there. It was a long discussion. Obviously, we don't want to record 2 hours of what I said to her, but it
Start
was
from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, it started. But I've struggled with this my whole life. Is communicating my thoughts. I forgot how you said it earlier, but not coldly or directly, whatever it was you said earlier was a great word.
Unabashedly and unapologetically.
Yeah, exactly. Unapologetically, just opening up and sharing my thoughts and not be afraid of that judgment, because my entire life was pursuing acceptance, right? And I trained my entire brain to just look for acceptance, find the best way to be accepted by everyone. And I've gone a long way to not care about people's acceptance, but I still struggle with my lady, my mom, my sister, my brother. Like, I still struggle with the people closest to me, just wanting so badly, their smile and their applaud, and I just want it so badly still that it still affects me till this day. So it's a work in progress still.
Yeah, no kidding. So, God, what to ask you? I mean, there's so many great questions to ask you, but I think that's one of the things I see too with a lot of guys is just the self-judgment they have, especially guys that are dealing with mental health issues. There's so much self-judgment, and that self-judgment is really isolating, right? Oh my God, if people knew the real me, they'd judge me. They'd never be able to I'd be rejected. I mean, was that ever something that you have struggled with throughout the course of your life as well?
Absolutely. I mean, rejection is the biggest thing I dealt with. A story that I shared quite publicly was I was bullied my whole life, and I still remember the very first day in kindergarten. I copied the Dukes of Hazzard car off this guy Marco in my class, thinking he'd say, "Wow, it's cool, we're teammates." But instead, he pointed his finger at me and called me a copycat, right? And everybody called me a copycat for that week probably. And then the next week, nobody remembered because they maybe picked on the next person. But that stayed with me my whole life. That scarred me for a very long time. And so, I'm always afraid of that judgment. And sometimes I have these thoughts and I feel that it's kind of against the norm. Or maybe not a very popular way of thinking. And I would be afraid of sharing it just because I'm afraid of that judgment. And especially for the mental health community here, I could say one thing that may or may not help, which is when I started dealing with this, I basically started surrounding myself with people who weren't afraid to say what they want to say. Mm-hmm. Right? I just watched and observed these people like, fuck it, just say it, And I realized that in the big picture, it always works out. It works out for them all the time. They feel comfort, they feel this peace, and they're able to shrug off any type of judgment. And I used to call these people Superman. And one of a good buddy of mine, Jay Wong, we used to do our sales together for our company, and we're like, "Yo, let's put on our Superman suit." And the Superman suit is anytime a customer rejects us or anyone rejects us, it's gonna bounce off of us like a bullet. And we just walk as if it didn't even touch us, right? And so that's what I observed when I started surrounding myself with individuals who are able to express themselves unapologetically because they believed in something, not in an offensive way, and they were supermen, that's or superwomen, right? It's just amazing to see them or rejection bounce right off of them as if it never even touched them. And them just moving forward and doing what they believed. And so I think about these stories of the people I've met, and it fuels me with energy to just go for it, just say it. And in the last year, I've said a lot of things that I would have never said, and it's against norm. I just say what I want to say, and it's been great. In fact, I've been praised for a few of them, which is nice. But guess what? I actually even care about those praises. I remember one post I put was 300 likes on my Facebook, and someone says, "Yo, man, you got 300 likes." I'm like, I don't actually care about the 300 likes. I just glad I put it out there, and if it helps, awesome.
Yeah, and doesn't it get easier? Like, it's funny. when you start talking about things that you never would have said before, I think what happens is people imagine saying it, and it causes their heart to race. You know, they get palpitations. Oh my God, am I going to get rejected? And as you start saying more of what your truth is, I find that not only do you find more powerful and connecting words with in which to be able to express your thoughts, but you say them in a way where they don't sound confrontational. They sound almost compassionate and direct and truthful, and they're coming from a place of legitimately having people's best interests at heart, you know? And I think that's a very limiting belief that people have, is that if I speak what's true to me, then people will, you know, automatically reject me, or I will create conflict. And yes, that could possibly happen, obviously, but the better you get at doing it, the more positive outcomes that come out of doing it. Have you found the same thing?
Absolutely. And I think the reason behind that is you attract people who are doing the same thing as well. You see, once you start practicing this, you end up attracting people who believe in the power of vulnerability, like yourself, right? I felt we attracted each other. And then even within the group, we're attracting each other. And myself within my community that I live here in Ottawa, I feel I'm attracting especially fathers and men who are, you know, on this journey as well, who want this for themselves. The guys who don't give a crap about this, man, I don't see them. I don't hear from them. But it's cool to know that 2 years ago I felt alone and I wanted this for myself. And now I feel like I'm part of an army of dudes who are just supporting each other through this, right? So it becomes easier first for yourself, but it becomes easier knowing that there's a bunch of us doing it together, right? And I think it's awesome. It's just so much more fun and rewarding for yourself once you start, because you see this camaraderie, you see this family building, and we all love that. We all love that energy of family.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned, I think we were talking the first time, but or maybe it was on this conversation actually, where you were talking when you first had your business, your first business, and you were, started going after some external goals and what that created for you. And I guess my question is, if you had some advice to give to the audience about, what's the best way to put this, like how to create that inner sense of, that inner compass where they know what they're doing is the thing they're supposed to be doing. Because I think what happens a lot of times, right, is we get caught up in this, the should, like we hear it all the time, you should all over yourself. So, I mean, how do you know that when you're making a choice or that you're taking a course of action, that it is the right one, or the one that feels at the moment to be what's the best choice for you?
Great question, dude. Really good question. So, I mean, the first one is, there's the obvious one where things are totally right or totally wrong, right? Like, for example, do you want to, okay, I mean, I guess this might not be obvious, but for me, I don't want guns in the wrong hands. So anything that supports guns in the wrong hands, I'm all over that, right? But there's things that are very right or wrong. Like, you know that if you make a choice, you're going to support, let's say, someone being bribed. Like that's the obvious one, right? But where it's not clear is when you're growing your business or you're building your professional life or personal life, and you're asked to get involved with things. And it may all appear to be awesome because it does good things. So I'll give you an example. I used to be approached by Cancer Foundation, breast cancer, heart and stroke. All these are amazing, amazing charities that are worth supporting. And then all these business opportunities, perhaps, all these amazing, powerful men, CEO of this company, CEO of that company, maybe this politician, or maybe that business owner. Like, these are all really successful people that we admire. And here we have an opportunity to meet with all these people, or we have an opportunity to support all these causes. And this is where I screwed up. I screwed up immensely because I just took on every charity could help. And then I met every powerful person I could meet, thinking it's what needs to be done. And that ended up being extremely stressful. And so back to your question, how do I know what choice to make? Now I know what's really important to me. So the first step is really know what's valuable to you, what's really valuable to your personal life. And for me, what's valuable is I suffer from heart disease. So heart and stroke is very, very important to me. I've been saved by the Children's Hospital many times in my life. So these are two very important causes for me, right? From a business perspective, I want to deal with business fathers who want to be good dads. So if I meet someone who's a successful businessman and he wants to do business with me, even though it could create a lot of profit, if I find out that he's working 90 hours a week and he's never there for his kid or his wife, I don't want to do business with this guy. And now I'm not afraid to say that anymore. While in the past, I'd say, hey, Luke, you're a successful business guy, but you're a shitty dad. Yeah, I'll do business with you. And when I start saying yes to those type of people, by the way, Luke's the name I made up. But when I start saying yes to guys like, let's say, Luke, I made money, but I felt guilt, more and more guilt, because I was supporting a man who's never there for his family. Right? So to me, when you move on in life and you make these choices, some of them are very gray. Like a charity comes up to you and asks you for $10, and maybe you can only afford $20, and there's like 30 charities asking you to give money, right? Don't dig into your wallet and try to find more money. Just give the $20 you have, but to the one that values the most to you. Right? So to me, it's like really knowing what you value and really sticking with it. And there's these gray areas that come into play because they all seem like great opportunities. But there's two examples right there. One, there are good charities, but some of them, they are good, but they have no true relationship to you. And the other could be there's a business opportunity with someone who can create an insane amount of profit for you, but at the end of the day, you're feeding someone who is not living the same values as you, and that breathes into the entire company, right? So I now know that later on, after like my past businesses, the business I run right now, I only take on clients after I meet with them, hang out with them, chill with them, know about their family, and only then that I say, I like you, man. You got great values, not you have a great business. I don't give a shit about that. If you have great values and we're trying to pursue and get the same mission, then let's do it together. I do that with business, friends, community. Everything I do, I make sure it's fully aligned with who I am.
Yeah, that's super important. You know, I learned a really valuable lesson this year, and it was I sort of entered into a business venture with somebody who, let's put it this way, was not a hell yes, you know, and I really fucked myself in a way where I wanted to believe, what's the best way to put this? I wanted, you know, I hoped against the evidence to the contrary, I guess. And I had never really learned that lesson before because, you know, as an entrepreneur, I've always been in the corporate world. This whole entrepreneurial journey for me is relatively new. And I had never really been in a situation where, that I needed to learn this lesson. And I invested a significant amount of time. And it's not that this person is a bad person, not even a little bit. He's a great guy. But I knew it was not a hell yes in my heart. And I couldn't say it out loud. And even my wife was questioning me about it a little bit. And I was really just trying to make what I wanted to be true. And I ended up learning a very valuable lesson, but I lost a lot of time in doing it. And I think so. I'm really, I think it's an important lesson that you're talking about how you decide who to work with. Because I think another thing that people do, especially as entrepreneurs, and I'd love your feedback on this, is, you know, we can have this tendency to be so desperate to grow our business that we can chase the wrong types of clients for us. And I think that's an important mind shift, and one that I've made recently, where it's like, you know, what I'm doing has tremendous value. And I'm now taking the approach where I want to invite people that it's all like to work with me, where it's a hell yes for both of us.
Absolutely. I mean, I could share with you if you'd like 13 sentences right now that I say about startups, at least the first one.
Please.
So the first one is pick good co-founders, because like co-founders is kind of like what location is for real estate. Once you pick a location, you can't just move the house somewhere else, right? Once you pick a co-founder, a partner, it's very difficult to, you know, like say split up with that partner, especially if you have revenues coming in and all that stuff. Like it's a mess if your co-founder is not the right co-founder. So you're right, man, dude, if it's not a hell yes, then there's the red flag, right? So one is pick good co-founders, launch fast, not like get your product out early, but once you get your product up, just get out there. Don't waste your time. Let your ideas evolve. Understand your customers is number 4. Next is better make a few users or better make a few customers love you than a lot ambivalent. Right? Offer surprisingly good customer service, so you just surprise them with phenomenal service. Make what you measure, spend little, get ramen profitable, meaning cover your expenses, avoid distractions, don't get demoralized, don't give up, and guess what? Deals fall through. I just sent those to you, by the way.
I was going to say, did you just recite those from your head, or?
Yeah, there's a full write-up that I wrote out, and so I actually just sent it to you over Facebook message. So feel free to share that with the community. But for those people who are starting a business or have a business, these are like the 13 sentences that was inspired by this guy named Paul Boucher. He's phenomenal, and so I don't want to take credit for all of these, but it's basically inspired by this guy Paul. And so yeah, take it, and I think I've run by this, including this current business. I picked it up, I launched. I found one co-founder. He's awesome. He's silent, but he's a great partner to bounce my ideas off of. And then I just literally followed the 13 steps, and it's allowed my business to evolve really, really well, and attract the right people.
That's fantastic. What do you see with your kind of change the channel a little bit? What do you see with your kids, especially the one in grade 9? One thing that I've been really surprised about. So we sent our kids to a private school, a Waldorf school, and it's a very, very different environment than say the public school system. And it's just a different teaching philosophy. It's a smaller school. There's no technology in the school. And what I've seen, I'm actually flabbergasted at how different grade 9 is. Like I knew it was going to be different. But holy moly, I can see as a parent how it's very overwhelming for the kids. Social media, for example, is so freaking pervasive. And my kids had social media before. I mean, but just the context in which they used it was very different. Now I see, like, when we were in high school, yes, obviously rumors could spread, and that happened a lot. But now, man, a rumor is like instantaneous. It gets spread instantaneously. Everybody. So as a dad looking at your kids, I mean, what are your thoughts on maybe social media and mental health, or the role of a parent, what the role a parent can play in kind of protecting and guiding our kids through this navigating these treacherous waters sometimes?
Great question, and it was a challenge, and still is a challenge, right? Excuse me. So again, great question, but it's still a challenge. My 13-year-old is on the outside is deemed as the grumpy girl, but because she's highly intuitive, and she's very curious about just life in general. Right. And so when it comes to social media, kids make this mistake all the time. For example, once she was trashing one sister to about one sister to her twin sister. You know what I mean? They're twins. Right. They're in the same group. One girl did a lot of work. The other girl didn't. So she trashes the other girl's sister, expecting, that to be normal. But then it just came back at her and bit her in the ass. Right. And then she's like, why did this happen? And I'm like, well, when you're trashing somebody on social media between two people, they share it and it spreads. And that's what happened. Right. And so how do I help my kids through it? So I've limited social media tremendously. I know all their passwords. They don't know their own passwords, actually. And when it gets too bad, I log them off of it. So that's how I control social media. When they get home, I've deleted I control how much internet they get from home. Right. And at school, it's something I can control. So how do I handle that? We have open conversations about the conversations they have on social media. So I asked them, so how's their things on social media? Any crazy things happening, friends? Are they sharing stupid stuff? Like, what do you think is stupid? What do you think is great? What have you learned through social media? What have you observed about people in general? So I've made her really inquisitive and curious about the conversations that happen, rather than being a victim, rather than putting herself in kind of like in the fire zone of social media. I'm able to I feel so far at least I'm successful at helping her remove herself from the overall conversation and observe it from kind of like a bird's eye. And it's allowed her to actually not let it affect her the way it could. Now, recently I shared with you and a few other friends that she had some really dark thoughts, and it was suicidal thoughts.
Wow.
Right? And it was scary because her counselor called me and she didn't want her mom and dad to know. She says, please call my stepdad. He's the only one I want you to talk to about this stuff. And the great thing is she's been having these thoughts for over a year now. She shared them with me, and I've kind of tried to walk her through it. But they were getting worse, and she went to the counselor because she wanted to get rid of it. So she's not suicidal, but she had suicidal thoughts. So I've learned there was a difference, right? Having these dark thoughts. And she's just talks about different dimensions of living, like really crazy, weird stuff that people think it's weird. And for me, it was like, wow, I can't believe my daughter thinks like this. It's so cool, right? And over the last couple weeks, because this happened only 3 weeks ago, but the last couple of weeks, we've actually brought in a psychotherapist, and we've worked with a psychotherapist. And, I thought it was because of all the social media. I thought it was because of all this stuff that she's been exposed to, overstimulation and comparing herself to all these other people. But it turns out, she had still experienced a lot of trauma from the divorce. And she feels herself, because I remember one of the questions was, when's the furthest point you can remember feeling this? And she remembered clearly, and she described a moment between her parents. And she still remembers that point very, very vividly. And so it was traced back to almost that point, and it had nothing to do with all the social media stuff. And then she even said, actually, the social media is kind of what helps me actually not want to die. I think that's what she said, right? And it was cool for me. I'm sitting there because I don't say anything, and the counselor says, "Oh, why does this help you not want to die?" She goes, "Oh, because I just kind of see how silly things are. It's just kind of funny. I look at social media, I look at what people are writing. It's just kind of funny." Right? And before that, she was knee deep into it. She was like affected by the social media. But in the last year or so, I could see that she goes through social media and she just kind of just watches it. She just observes social media. So that's on that point. I don't know if there's time, but I want to share one more thing, if that's okay.
Yeah, please. Just take as long as you need.
Yeah. So from a school, because you talked about school, and this is something that's very important to me. My 14-year-old actually wants to be homeschooled.
Oh, really?
And we talked to Vincent about this. We've talked to Jim Shields, like a lot of people that you and I both know. And the reason she wanted this is because the last 3 years since I've met her, she would say, oh, yes, I always ask the question, positive inquiry, like what's good and what's great, And she's like, well, what's good is that I learned everything I need to learn within 15 minutes. What could be great is if everyone could catch up in less than 2 weeks, right? And
I didn't have that problem in high school. Where mine was the opposite.
Me neither. But then after 3 years, the other cause of her depression is she felt wasted. She felt she's being wasted at school, and then I had a text which I still have to this day, where she was telling me how depressed she was at school and about her education. And what she wrote was, I just wish teachers would just do awesome things again. Like, just be awesome instead of just following some stupid curriculum that's given to them. I have that text with me still.
Wow.
And then I wrote back, what do you mean awesome? She was, people just don't want to be great anymore. People just don't want to help people become great anymore. They don't care about greatness. This is at 13, she wrote this. Right? So that's when I'm like, holy cow. And then here she is hearing me on these podcasts and seeing my conversations online and all these people talking about homeschooling. And that's when it triggered her. She's like, I want to be homeschooled. All right. So The cool thing about that is we've always incorporated homeschool elements every day in our home. So every week we have like 2 days a week, we almost have an entrepreneur week. And advice for the fathers here is that when I first met them, I asked Athena, she's the older one, what do you want to be? She goes, I said, what do you want to do in life? She goes, well, I want to be a lawyer, a prosecutor. And at first they just listed a title, you know what I mean? Like a profession. And then I would ask, well, what problem would you be solving? Right. And so 2 years ago, and we're hitting our third year. In fact, we're October 3rd. So we've just passed our 2-year mark. We're on to our third year. And they have a gratitude and a problem journal or a pain journal. And every night till this day, so they've written over 700 statements already. They've written every night before I go to bed, I'm grateful for this, one gratitude statement. And then a problem I would like solved is this. And then they go through every night writing a problem statement. We all know about gratitude statement, but they write a problem statement. And now to watch how their brain has changed, they look at the world and they see problems, not as a world full of problems, but problems that they wonder if they could fix or not. And Athena is now about to produce an app for her soccer scouting. I can't reveal the name of the app, but she saw a problem that she's really passionate about, and I connected her with a developer friend of mine, and now they're just going to run with it and just try to develop an app because she wants to solve a problem, right? Does she still want to be a lawyer? She's starting to realize that she does not want to be a prosecutor lawyer. Now she knows she wants to solve a different type of problem, which could result her being in a lawyer, right? So both kids now have grown to be this entrepreneurship type mind where they are looking at the world and trying to match a problem with their passion and their gifts.
Wow, that is so interesting. So in other words, you're saying by writing down these problems, they are, I guess, putting words to these problems. Is it giving them an opportunity to consider them like in a less passive way and think about how they might be, for some of the problems, how they might be the ones to actually solve them? Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly it. Because the whole point of the exercise is just put out there to the universe that you've noticed this is a problem and maybe someone can solve it. Right. And so I'll give an example. She came home one day. This is like one of the earlier entries. She wrote, I wish I could solve my best friend's heartache. She just went through her first breakup. And then she's like, I know, it's such a stupid problem, right? Like that, right? I'm like, no, it's a great problem because I could tell you this very minute, probably at least 5 million people are going through a breakup and they're going through a heartache and they don't know how to deal with it. And if you have a way to help people overcome this and you care enough about this problem, this could be one of the things you do with your life. I remember that conversation and that was like an aha moment for her. And from that point on, she just wrote anything that she saw was a problem. Here's another one. She said she comes home one day, it was like 5 p.m. or something, and she's like, I know what I'm writing tonight on my problem statement. I'm like, what is it? I want to write, how can you cut grass more efficiently? Because we have our house is kind of a cute little home, but we have a big lawn, and she cuts the lawn, right? So she mows the lawn. And this one day, it just took forever. And she's like, okay, there's got to be a more efficient way to cut the lawn, right? And so right away, she even lie down in bed and think, what could be a problem today? It's like, I know exactly what I'm writing tonight, right? So they write every single thing they see. You know, the leaves are falling down, and the 11-year-old wrote something about the leaves just a couple of weeks ago. Right. And for her, she's an arts girl. So she goes, there's got to be really cool ways to preserve the color of the leaves. Right. Because she brings home a leaf and she just wants to preserve it. And so that was her problem statement.
You know, it's so interesting that you say that, because I think one thing that people think is they have this crazy idea that all the world's problems have been solved already. And, you know, just thinking about your daughter, like, I have every single time I cut the fucking grass, I say to myself, this cannot be the most efficient pattern to cut this grass. And I always wonder about it, but I never go any further than wondering about it. You know what I mean? So I just cut it in the same stupid pattern I always do. And I bet you there was somebody, I bet you I could take 30% of the time off it. I cut the grass if I just did it in a logical way that maximized the efficiency of the whole process, right? So it's so interesting that you say that, because those problems are all around us. But I think that so often we place ourselves in this box and we don't see ourselves. We see ourselves as solving a certain type of problem, like maybe something that we went to college for in a work type of problem, versus being able to solve some of the, quote, bigger problems or different kind of problems. Like people don't, I think that's one of the things that actually leads to some people feeling depression and anxiety, is not recognizing how much knowledge and how many capabilities they already possess, to make a contribution to the world.
Absolutely. I mean, well, I'll finish with note, but I want to touch on about people having mental problems around the same space, about not realizing they could solve these problems and stuff, right? But you know what? Let's just go straight to that, because I forgot the last point I was going to make about my kid. But a few nights ago, I was on one of the Alliance calls, right? And what I shared with them was 3 years ago when I was trying to come back from my depression, from my divorce, because of course it's so depressing to be divorced, right? And you blame yourself for everything. And I went through all this crap where I was like, I'm fucking idiot, I'm useless, all that, right? And one of the things I did, not on purpose, and it ended up resulting in curing a lot of my depression, was for especially those who have long drives. I used to drive to Montreal, which is about an hour and a half from my city here. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to start recording my thoughts, and I'm going to record it for my son. I'm going to speak to him and just tell him about my life and tell him about stuff that's happened and cool things, positive things. And I just want to leave all my best lessons to him. And this was inspired by the guy named Brendan Burchard. And I just heard one of his videos, and he's just saying, everyone should write a book, whether you sell or not. Everyone has valuable knowledge to pass on to friends, family, right? And people they love. So then I'm like, all right, I think I'm going to do that. I don't even care about writing a book to publish, but I do care about sharing my best experiences and mistakes with only my son and the people I care about. So I started driving, and every day I would record, every time I drive, I would record 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour of me just talking to a phone, but as if it's my son, right? I do voice notes, and now I have probably like literally 30,000 hours of voice notes, but just by downloading what you think would be great to just pass on to people you care about, including all your mistakes, what happens is this energy starts creating. You're like, wow, this is actually valuable stuff that I'm passing down. And suddenly when you download, new amazing things starts uploading into your mind. And when all this new stuff starts uploading into your mind, that's when I felt, at least for me, my depression, my self-doubt talk, my fear-imposed, rules, right? All of that kind of stuff that I created from it started disappearing. It started disappearing because the more I downloaded, the more space I created for awesome things to upload. Because it just felt more awesome the more I download.
I love it, brother. That's great advice, and I could not agree with you more. So listen, I knew this was going to be an awesome conversation, and I also loved knowing that I didn't know where it was going to go. So, man, you dropped a ton of bombs in there. So for the audience who I know will want to know more about you, and when I can record the intro after, I'm going to rave about what an awesome human being you are. So, and how happy I am that we crossed paths. But for the audience who wants to know more about you, what's the best way for them to find out about what you're doing?
You could check out dudebuddha.com. That's DUDE, B's and Bob, UDDHA.com, dudebuddha.com. And you could just probably Google my name too. I think there's a few TED Talks there, and I share a lot about my life. Yeah. And yeah, those are the two great places to learn more about me. And you could always contact me at tuan@dudebuddha.com as well. Send me an email. I'm pretty good at getting back within like 24 to 48 hours. And yeah, that's pretty much. I appreciate the opportunity, by the way, Jason. This is just rocking awesome to be able to talk about just life and challenges we all face and bringing it out to the open.
Well, it's been an honor, brother. So thank you very much. And I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Thanks, dude.
And there you have it. The sound of explosions fading away in the distance is from the bombs dropped by the Tuan. Thanks, brother. I enjoyed the podcast. I enjoy every conversation with you, and you've taught me so much, man. So I'm going to end this episode the same way I end every fucking episode, and that's by saying, listen, if you have struggled, I want you to know that I've struggled too. And if you ever want to talk to me, I want you to know that I will not judge you. And just as I have given that gift to you, please consider giving that gift to somebody else today, because not only will you change their life, but you will change your own. And you'll change your own by becoming more open and connected and influential and effective and all those things. That's what happens when you live a life of open, humble, vulnerable service to others. So please get off your ass and offer that gift to somebody else and watch what happens as your world changes in a big way. All right, guys, see you next time.